And we are live. Hello and welcome to Talking Doctrine, and thank you for joining us again tonight. This time we're going to do a watch party courtesy of Alex. Thank you for sending these tonight. We were talking about different tricks the devil's playing, and we've been doing watch parties looking into it. And then also talking about the true meaning of, how to truly take care of your health. But understanding what we've been lied about is important. So, in the description is a link to the two broadcasts, or the two mini documentaries that we're going to watch tonight. So if you want to watch it on the original content channel, you can click below, but we're just having a quick little watch party here tonight ourselves to help share truth, along with the truth of the gospel and the truth of Jesus Christ. There's the truth of how he created us as well. So let's look into that, and I hope you guys enjoy. I'm looking forward to learning myself. We're going to watch first John Bergman talk about, he's got good stuff, AIDS and HIV. So let's see what he has to say.
Welcome to True Health Tuesdays. Tonight we're talking about AIDS and HIV, and we're gonna explore it a little bit different, kind of like what the public knows, what the public thinks they know, and what are actual facts. And the most frustrating thing when you're talking not about just HIV, AIDS, or cancer, or any of these diseases, but you can get the same disease, okay? Information from two different sources is totally different. And I know that doesn't make sense, but it's kind of like if you have chickenpox in Japan, think it's the same chickenpox in Russia? Yeah, it is. Same red pustules, lasts about 2 weeks, you got lifetime immunity, herpes zoster virus, you can even reproduce it. Okay, can't say that with AIDS or HIV. But let's look at what the government thinks, okay? Because if you go on AIDS.gov, this is what the general public. Now, granted, all the information that we have here is available to the public, okay? But how many people read the Journal of Toxicology in their spare time? Okay, no, not many. Okay, so this is all public. But let's look at the propaganda machine. I'm sorry, the CDC. Okay. AIDS.gov. Okay, HIV attacks the body's immune system, specifically CD4 the T cells, which help immune system fight off infections. This makes the person more likely to get infections and eventually die. Now, get this, unlike some other viruses, the human body can't get rid of HIV completely. So once you have HIV, you have it for life. No effective cure for HIV currently exists, but with proper treatment and medical care, HIV can be controlled. Okay, that's what you've been told about. Okay, so now again, we're going to go through the government propaganda machine and what the actual science is. Now, symptoms in 40 to 90% of the cases, so already that should bother you. Okay, so that means not everybody has the same symptoms. And so we're talking fever, tender lymph nodes, throat inflammation, rash, headache, nausea, and vomiting and diarrhea. Now, granted, there are other conditions that have those same symptoms. Now, what spreads it? Unprotected sex, body fluid transmission, hypodermic needles, mother-to-child delivery, breastfeeding. And this is, again, what the government says. The problem is now, how do they diagnose it? Well, it's a spectrum condition caused by infections from the HIV. Now, a spectrum of conditions and we're going to go over that, but defined in terms of either CD4 T cell count below 200 cells. Now, AIDS is the stage of infection when your immune system becomes too badly damaged. Okay, you become vulnerable to opportunistic infections. And again, this is the government. So in 2014, there were 44,000 diagnosed with HIV, 26,000 with full-blown AIDS. Death is about 7,000 a year. Okay, now look at the CDC. The death of a person with an AIDS diagnosis can be due to any cause, that is, the death may or may not be related to AIDS. Okay, now, if you're smoking enough weed to understand this, okay, because grass is legal in California, okay, they're giving you the death statistics, and then they're saying it may or may not be related to AIDS. They just were in this category and died of it. Okay, okay. So the statistics are horrible. You know, 2 million new cases, 1.2 million in the US, estimated 50,000. So it seems like it's still growing. Okay, how are they diagnosing it? So, and I love this. How does the CDC know who is infected or it doesn't? Okay, is that a good question? Because they're the one, the Center for Disease Control. Off the CDC site, the CDC estimates the number of people living with HIV called prevalence by using a scientific model. This model helps the CDC estimate the new number of HIV infections and how many people are infected, but they don't know it. So wait a second. So all of these numbers that they're talking about, all of these statistics, they're not really counting people. Okay, it's a statistical model. Now, the history of it, they think it started because there's a lot of retroviruses in primates. First African primates. The bushmeat theory is that these African aborigines went into the jungle, shot monkeys, ate the meat, got infected, and then flew to America and infected people, and it went everywhere else. Okay, after World War II, migrated to cities through prostitution, so that means female to male contact, IV drug use, other forms of contact. And again, this is the government theory. 81 to 82, clinicians identified an immune system disorder. There was a dysfunction of T cells. Now it's interesting because most diseases are going to activate T cells, so there's going to be a change in T cell production. Groups at risk, they call them the 4 H's: hemophiliacs, heroin addicts, homosexuals, Haitians. Yes, Haitians. And when you look at it, AIDS is officially caused by the retrovirus HIV. Now, when we look at it, so you get a virus called HIV, and vaccines are used to get a virus, and you're talking millions of people with this. Does anyone hear the ka-ching? Okay, this is like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity, because we have this great fear, okay, of a life-threatening disease. 1984, oh, just a couple of years, and this is the discovery of the HIV. Robert Gallo. We hope to have a vaccine ready for testing in about 2 years. Okay, this was 1984. Okay. 1985, recent demonstrations of neutralizing antibodies in AIDS and pre-AIDS patients are encouraging. Prospect for a vaccine. Oh my gosh, fantastic. Nobody can say the data was encouraging. It's all smoke and mirrors. There's nothing there. John Poor, AIDS vaccine. John P. Moore, AIDS vaccine researcher. And so you go from, oh my God, this is exciting, to, wait a second, we're having a problem with this. 2005, so you're talking about 20 years later, development of an HIV vaccine remains one of the most difficult challenges confronting biomedical research today. When we look at 2007, and you're talking more than a decade devising the best ways to develop a vaccine. The vaccine did not seem to be working. More people among the vaccinated group were getting the virus than those who received the placebo. Roughly 90% of the vaccine studies were using major elements of the Merck's approach. Can you imagine that, being in a study for HIV and getting the vaccine and catching the disease? 2008, we're talking Nobel Prize winning biologist. Scientists are no further forwarding development of a vaccine against HIV after more than 20 years of research. I love this. Co-chairman of the HIV Vaccine Summit. Despite hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, the reality in 2008 is that HIV vaccine clearly remains beyond our grasp. Now, why is that? Have they ever isolated the virus?
You can't make a vaccine for something that
Doesn't there. Now, 2013, a major setback was that volunteers who received the vaccine shot were more likely to contract the virus than those who were given a placebo. Yeah, that'd be a drawback. Okay, and I love this, AIDS.gov. The only way to know for sure if you have HIV is to get tested. Okay, so that's a good idea. We all need to get tested. What test did they offer? I don't know. Let's look into it. First, HIV tests are often wrong and produce false positives. Well, that doesn't sound right. Most AIDS organizations claim that HIV testing, the ELISA, the Western blot, are 99.5% accurate. Okay, this is what they're advertising for these tests. The problem is they're as much as 90% inaccurate. That when you look at it, known factors cause false positives. Okay, I know this is tough, but when you look at this, we're talking antibodies that are naturally occurring, passive immunizations, immunoglobulins, tuberculosis, kidney disease, flu vaccine. If you get any flu vaccine, how many people are getting that? What about DPT shots, autoimmune diseases, respiratory tract infections, malaria, rheumatoid arthritis, hepatitis B vaccine? What's the vaccine that every child in America gets at 12 hours old? The hepatitis B, and that can give a false positive on an HIV test. Okay, factors known to cause false positives on antibody test, page 2. I'm not sorry about the small print, because to find the truth behind a disease that doesn't exist, this is criminal. You gotta look at the small print. Because by God, when you look at this, acute viral infections, hepatitis, antibodies for blood transfusions, multiple transfusions. That's one of the biggest things. If you get a foreign protein in your system, your body builds antibodies to it. Nobody has ever checked the antibody production of 69 doses of 16 different vaccines in our children today. Does that give a positive antibody test? Nobody knows. Okay, we're not testing healthy kids. We're looking at hyperbilirubinemia. If there's a problem with the liver, it's going to show possibles. Other retroviruses, we're caught in mitochondrial disorders. And these are all antibodies. Epstein-Barr virus, receptive anal sex. This is why when you're looking at heterosex or vaginal sex, the vaginal canal isn't absorptive. Okay, the anal and rectum are. So when you get a receptive anal sex, the proteins in there are absorbed into the body. And just like getting a vaccine, you get a vaccine, your body responds to those foreign proteins. Okay, I mean, it's just so crazy. HIV tests are not the test for AIDS. You're going to see they're not the test for HIV. Antibody tests find certain antibodies in your blood. Now, it's interesting. Now, think of this. This is all infections. Okay, we're using antibodies to test the level of your body's ability to fight something. Okay, and what's supposed to happen if you're exposed to any virus, fungus, bacteria, okay, generally it's viral or bacterial, you're going to develop an immune system or response called an antibody. And supposedly when you have a lot of antibodies, you're supposed to be protected. Okay, now that's totally not true, because in studies with patients who have a genetic anomaly called agammaglobulinemia, anyone want to try and say that 3 times really fast? Okay, that means they can't produce antibodies. Well, it turns out that they're able to fight and defeat viral infections and bacterial infections at the same rate that anybody who can't do that. So looking for antibodies doesn't really indicate that you have had exposure, but in every other disease, what science is telling you is that if you have a lot of antibodies, you're protected from the disease. Except in this. In this, if you got antibodies, holy shit, you've been exposed, you're screwed. And that's the only disease, okay? Antibodies don't indicate infections, and in every other antibody test, to be positive for antibodies mean that you had an exposure to a prior viral infection and mounted a defense to it. I mean, for sure, many experts believe that HIV antibody positive means that you've successfully mounted a defense and you can fight off the virus. Babe, I didn't test positive yet, but I'm working for it. Okay, can you imagine being married to a guy with that sick of a sense of humor? Okay, fact 3, testing has never been approved by the FDA. Are you aware of that? The Western blot, the ELISA, all the different tests, they've never been shown to be approved by the FDA. No HIV test, whether it uses blood, urine, saliva, has ever been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Were you aware of that? Okay, just checking. The HIV tests have never been validated. There's never been a group of people who tested HIV positive who were proven to be active HIV. Ever. Ever. Okay, there's never been a group who tested HIV negative and were proven not to have active HIV in their blood. Okay, so when you look at it, and we've got over 200 references, so please check these out at the end. The tests are not specific or unique for HIV. The proteins used in HIV test kits have never been proven to be unique. I mean, when you look at it, many of these proteins, they have nothing to do with any illnesses. So they're looking for viral fragments. In fact, this is one of the package inserts. Okay, and this is the disclaimer that's on the testing package to find out if you got HIV positive. What does it say? At present, there is no recognized standard for establishing the presence or absence of antibodies to HIV-1 and HIV-2 in the human blood. Hi, this doesn't really work. Okay, so don't put a lot of stake in it, but your doctor's going to bill you for it. I mean, huh? Okay, so the CDC has got an idea. They take one blood sample, okay? They, out of the same source, same everything, same blood. They send it to 525 different laboratories. Some of them they send it 44 different times. Okay, and this is a sample that's proven positive by their ELISA test, and you know all their experts said, yes, man, this is HIV positive. So let's find out. So what they're looking for is a type of protein. Okay, now. These are the yeses, these are the nos for the 525 different samples, and it's just one sample of blood, tested 525 different times. So if I'm willing to blindfold everybody, spin you in a circle, give you a dart, and have you aim at a wall in the clinic. You'll probably hit it, oh, I don't know, 246 times out of 277, or if you're facing the window, 86 times out of 430 times you're going to miss. And this is considered accurate? Okay, now, the American Journal of Clinical Pathology, they sent the same blood 44 different times, okay, and concluded that it was positively identified 59% of the time. Same blood sample was identified positive a little bit more than half the time. Okay, you know, it's crazy. 10 different ways of interpreting the test results. Now, what's tough is when you look at this, you're looking for proteins, and if that protein sequence matches, then it's going to be HIV positive. So each protein is labeled with a P followed by its molecular weight. Okay, the Western blot is not standardized, and around the world, different combined bands are considered to be positive. So if you have a band, let's say you have the protein P160 band, that's approved by the CDC, but it's not approved in Germany, it's not approved in the UK, it's not approved in France. Chickenpox in Japan, is it the same as chickenpox in America? Yeah. Can't say that with this. It's all an interpretation. Now, the viral tests have never been validated, and have never been proven to be unique or specific to HIV tests. Were you aware of this? How many millions of people have been diagnosed HIV positive, had their lives ruined by something that doesn't exist? The disclaimer on the packages, okay, not intended to be used as screening tests for HIV or to confirm HIV infection. Then what the f are they being used for? Oh, Michael, bleep that out, please. It just pisses me off. I like people. You shouldn't scare them over something that's stupid. That's just wrong. High amounts of false positives, then they shouldn't be doing it at all. The T cell counts even, if they say, oh yeah, you have a low T cell count, you have a high T cell count, they vary day to day. The WHO says if you have less than 350 cells per microliter, oh, it's an indicator of of a HIV infection. However, when they look at full-blown HIV negative people, 3 to 5% head counts below that. So it just doesn't make any sense. There's no scientific evidence that proves HIV is transmitted through heterosexual intercourse regardless of condom use. And when you look at the American Journal of Epidemiology, and to our knowledge, our study is the largest and longest of heterosexual transmission of HIV in the United States. The consistency of results over 10-year duration argues for the validity of our results. In general, we estimate that the infection from male to female transmission is approximately 0.0009 per contact, and that infection from female to male transmission is even lower. Why are they doing the fear? Journal of the American Medical Association. The results of our study challenge the concept that CD4 cell depletion is a chronic HIV infection, attributable to direct effects of HIV replication. Further efforts to delineate the relative contribution of other mechanisms will be crucial to understanding HIV immunopathogenesis and the ability to attenuate it. They're finding out that what they thought they knew, they don't know. And this is brilliant. The president of Rethinking AIDS. For 24 years and hundreds of billions of dollars of research, what are they giving us? Tests that don't detect the virus and toxic drug treatments. How toxic are the drugs? When we look at this, Rethinking AIDS, I mean, this is brilliant. They've got a mission statement. Can you imagine this? Okay, 85. So we're talking, what, 30 years? Okay, it's widely believed in the general public that a retrovirus called HIV causes a group of disease by AIDS. Did everybody in here believe that before you started? Yes? Okay. Many biochemical scientists now question this hypothesis. Are you questioning it so far? Huh. By the end of this, I guarantee you're all going to be freaking questioning it. We propose a thorough reappraisal of the existing evidence for and against this hypothesis be conducted by a suitable independent group. We further propose that critical epidemiologic studies be devised and undertaken. Makes sense to me. In over 30 years, no scientific evidence has yet appeared in the medical literature that says HIV has been isolated or purified from AIDS patients. See, Koch developed these things called Koch postulates. You find an animal with a disease. You take a sample of the tissue or blood. You look for a pathogen. Okay? You grow that pathogen. You isolate that pathogen. It's called a viral isolate. You have to spin it through like a sucrose gradient. It's kind of cool because it all looks like a homogeneous pattern where they all look the same. Once you get a viral isolate, you find a healthy animal. Okay, am I going too fast? You inject them with this viral isolate. You have them develop the same disease. And then you take the same infected flesh, grow what killed that dog, rabbit, person, whatever, okay? And then you compare the viral isolates. Then you say, this is Koch postulate's been around for over 100 years. This is exactly how we can identify the disease. Okay, does that make sense? Has that ever been done with HIV or AIDS? Never. Never. A positive result to these markers is assumed but not proved to be indicating of actual infection. There's no universal standard exists. Now, the medications prescribed to HIV positives are toxic chemicals known to destroy the immune system. You know what they used to say when Magic Johnson got first diagnosed with HIV positive? And okay, now this was a long time ago. And they said, oh, you know, he's got the best therapy. He's been really quiet about the therapy he's doing. And I saw this one meeting of this group of scientists. And AZT is one of the drugs they use to treat HIV patients. AZT, you're going to find, is one of the most toxic drugs. It was even pulled off because it was so poisonous. Okay, and they said the only thing magic about AZT is there's no AZT in magic. Okay, so, well, you know, hey, you try and get humor in an AIDS talk, okay? It ain't that easy. Okay. Slow progression of HIV, okay, slows the progression. This is what they're talking about, the antiviral therapy. CDC says it can keep you healthy for many years. Really, the Journal of Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, all 4 classes of antiretrovirals and all 19 Food and Drug Administration approved antiretrovirals have been directly or indirectly associated with life-threatening events and deaths. So here the CDC is saying, yeah, man, take the drugs. And the journals are saying, don't do it. Now, this is, I got to apologize for the wording on this, but it's really, really important. This was a study out of the Journal of Acquired Immune Deficiency. It's one of the first to analyze the series of life-threatening events, AIDS events, and deaths in a large cohort. So you're actually giving this drug to a large group of people and seeing, what do they die of? Do they die of the drug? Do they die of AIDS? Are they healthier? And our principal finding is the rate of grade 4 events. Grade 4 means you're dying. Okay, death is just about imminent. It's greater than the rate of AIDS events. So the grade 4 events from the medications, you have a greater rate of dying from the drugs than you do of the AIDS. And found the risk of death associated with these grade 4 events was very high for many events. Thus, the incident of AIDS events fails to capture the most of the morbidity experienced by patient with HIV infections prescribed by the high-active antiretroviral therapy. Better evidence is needed to determine how much of this morbidity is directly due to the highly active antiretroviral therapy. What bastard named that heart? Okay, I mean, that's just criminal. This study involved 12 prospective cohorts, 20,000 patients. Okay, 20,000 people, that's a good sample. The heart, highly active antiretroviral therapy. We aim to examine the trends and characteristics in patients starting heart in North America and Europe. Such improvement has, okay, virological response after starting heart improved over the calendar years, but such improvement has not translated into a decreased mortality. There was no correspondence in decreased rate of AIDS or death for up to 1 year in follow-up. There is some evidence for an increased rate of AIDS in the most recent period. So they're using these drugs, but it's not helping. Now, what's the real cause of this? Remember, we're talking foreign proteins into the body mounts in response to it. They used to call it GRID, gay-related immune deficiency syndrome. And one of the reasons is some of the drugs that would weaken the immune system. They were called poppers. They actually weaken the immune system response and increase the lung infection. But also, when we look at this, what are some of the other foreign proteins that have been injected into us? Now, in the 50s, we had 7 vaccines. Okay, 7 total. In the 70s, we had 13 total. When we look at now, we've got 69 doses of 16 different vaccines. But look what happened in the 70s. We started to get 5 different oral polio vaccines. Now, this was known that the simian virus, the SIV virus, it's SIV40 virus, but there was a lot of different monkey viruses. See, the polio vaccine, viruses don't grow on their own. They're a well-organized molecular parasite. So in order to grow the polio virus, you have to put infected tissue on monkey tissue. And we actually use green monkeys. I mean, they're really, really cool for growing and reproducing polio. So I know what you're worried about, Doc. You're worried about transferring viruses that may be on there and you're trying to isolate just the polio vaccine. He's just a scaredy cat. So back in the 50s, they said, screw it, let's just inject this in a bunch of people and then let's give them this oral polio. Okay, 5 doses of it. What'd you say, why not 6? Do I hear 7? Do I hear 3? There's no science behind this, okay? The article noted that primate kidney tissue cultures grows for mediums for the preparation of the oral polio vaccine, and that the donor primates harbored an immune deficiency virus. It's a retrovirus. So every time we're dropping this in people, it has the same retroviral thing. Now don't worry. We stopped using the oral polio vaccine in this country because we found it was spreading polio. Okay, we don't use it anymore in this country. And in fact, it was the only cause of polio over the last 30 years, okay, in our country. No, don't worry. We're still making a profit. We sent it over to India and we sent it over to Africa. Now, of course, the CDC says you can't send it to an area where they have weakened immune system or high HIV rates. Yes, like they do in Africa. So we're sending it over there even though the CDC says not to do it. Okay, that it could weaken their immune system. Okay. Oh, here's one. The theory that medical research trials in the late 50s in the Congo and other regions of Africa provided the mechanism by which the HIV virus is spread to humans. When they were growing this, and they thought that they actually created this in a lab. Now, what's tough is, if you created a disease that started to attack the immune system, that was a retrovirus and it was part of a vaccine program, do you want to kind of like express that or suppress it? You want to suppress it because we're here for profit. Okay, so Edward Hooper, an independent science writer and investigator, you got to read the book The River. I mean, it's just brilliant. And here's a quote: because of the enormous implications and the hypothesis that AIDS may an unintended iatrogenic disease is almost inevitable that this theory will engender heated opposition from many of those in the scientific establishment and those with vested interest. Heck, I mean, I should have a bomb under my car tonight. Okay, so when you look at this, you're talking an experimental oral polio vaccine. Yes, we're going to do it in a country without a media. Okay, because what if it causes a problem? Okay, 1 million subjects in Africa, okay, between 1957 and 60, including infants with underdeveloped immune system, took this. And they say that it was most widely, one of the main sources of where this immune virus came from. I love this article, that how to attack a scientific theory and get away with it. The attempt to destroy the origin of AIDS hypothesis. See, the opponents of the oral polio theory, I mean, granted, there's lots of them. They block publication in peer-reviewed journals. They put up smear campaigns. They've done false documentation, claimed repeatedly that the oral polio theory has been refuted. You know, vaccines are safe and effective. They really are, except when they're not. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. Okay, and when are they not? Well, we have 1 in 2 children with a chronic illness or disease. We got 2 patients that came in today, full-blown autism from the DPT shot, proven in court. So when people say, hey, look, it's been proven that vaccines don't cause autism, well, that's not true. It's been proven that the oral polio vaccine does not cause AIDS or any type of retroviral response. Okay, Brian Martin, sociology professor, University of Australia. In many public policy disputes, scientific theories are attacked as part of a wider struggle involving politics, economics, and ethics. In such situation, it is naive to assume that scientific theories will be evaluated neutrally and fairly. Being prepared means that the attackers won't always get away with it. Okay, that's the mistake I made this weekend. I spoke at a conference, okay, called Lightning in a Bottle. I was very excited because they're asking how to survive in a medical world that's not based in science. And I thought, man, this is great. And so I look at the past speakers, and no one's wearing a tie and a suit. This is more like a sarong, incense kind of thing. And I thought, cool, these people are going to be really enlightened. Okay, and I'm building a PowerPoint for it, and I think, no, I'm not going to need facts or anything. I'm talking about the body being smart and healthy and everything else. And I go up there and I say, vaccines are not good. They trigger an inflammatory response. And this girl goes up and says, what about polio? And I go, wait a second, are you under the impression that polio affected a lot of people? Yeah! And I said, well, okay, you realize that 1 in 1,000 people had permanent paralysis. Yeah! So that means 99.9% of everybody that got it got over within about 2 weeks with no permanent markers whatsoever. So wouldn't it be more effective to look at that 0.1% that had the problem? And then why was it a disease of the summer? Why did it affect children? So what are the other factors in there? Did you know that we're spreading polio, we're spreading diseases, and the oral polio vaccine that I got actually contained the SV40 virus? That's why there's a massive rise in lymphomas and cancers in my age group. But you know what my biggest mistake was? I didn't have the documentation to back it up. It's just me talking. And so I said, good, go to my YouTube channel. I talk about polio a long time. It's frustrating. This right here, okay, having the document, being prepared, the attackers won't get away with it. You've got to be prepared. That's why these YouTube videos are done.
Why is that? Because they're lazy and they can't do their own research?
No.
Sort of stuff?
Propaganda's been used forever. Okay, it's been used forever. Okay, we don't like the homeless, let's gather them up. We don't like the gypsies, who likes them? Gather them up. Okay, we don't like the Jews. Hey, wait a second, that's my brother-in-law. Okay, they're trying to manipulate you with the media. That's what this is. Okay, Jonas Lalandis, a Stanford professor. Okay, there's an increase in concern that most current published research findings are false. Think of that. The greater the financial and other interests and or prejudices in a scientific field, the less likely the research findings are to be true. Okay, because there are vested interests. There's no independent money for research. Look at this, vaccine testing in the 50s and 60s may have caused the AIDS epidemic. Okay, HIV testing is extremely inaccurate. Antiretroviral treatments can produce and probably will kill you, and it may even cause AIDS. This information has been suppressed. It is. I mean, 2009, you're talking over $11 billion in the antiretroviral drugs. And in just 1 year, you're not talking about the billions of dollars flowing in. Okay, what are the natural solutions? I mean, you're looking at standard whey protein, anything to stimulate glutathione synthesis. Oh, what decreases glutathione? Tylenol. Okay, what decreases the immune system? The poppers. Okay, curcumin, antioxidants, selenium, licorice, fruits and vegetables, seaweed, St. John's wort, shiitake mushrooms, pomegranates, rosemary, blue algae. I mean, we're talking about everything. I know it sounds crazy, but if you think everything that you do to strengthen your immune system is good, stuff that you do that weakens the immune system is bad. Okay? I'm going to give you AZT. It's the most toxic drug ever. It was removed from the market because it was too poisonous for cancer. Okay, we're going to give you that. Okay, nutrients to boost your immune system. Selenium, glutathione, B vitamins. And I love this. Physicians involved in a selenium and amino acid field trial in Botswana are reporting that this nutritional protocol reverses AIDS 99% of the time, usually within 3 weeks. Wait a second, really? Amazing. Micronutrient deficiencies known to influence immune function are prevalent before the development of symptom of HIV. Micronutrient supplementation has improved the markers for HIV. I don't have the case study up here, but this guy, he was with me for about 6 months, 20 years HIV positive, getting treated by the VA. And I said, look, you don't have it. It doesn't exist. They've never isolated the virus. Start doing this stuff, okay, and you'll be HIV negative. He was. B vitamins, C vitamins, trace elements. I mean, selenium may also have an important role in preventing HIV replication. Journal of the American Medical Association. These are the things that negatively affect your immune system. Vaccinations negatively affected, antibiotics, medications, environmental toxins, GMO. It destroys the gut flora. Lack of proper nutrition, nutritional deficiencies, and chronic stress. Have you seen this before? Yes, we talk about the same thing. You really only need a healthy nervous system, regular exercise, proper nutrition, sufficient rest, and prayer and meditation. All of this stuff actually works. I mean, I know this is a little bit long and wordy of a talk. I could have put in how the poppers, you know, that's common in certain sex practices, weakens the immune system, increases fungal infections. How AZT is too toxic for chemotherapy, and they give it because they're trying to weaken the immune system in somebody who's already weakened. Or how many dozens and dozens of diseases. There's over 29 different diseases that are categorized as AIDS. If I got pneumocystis carinii, okay, which is definitive diagnosis, and I'm a white heterosexual male, I just got pneumonia. If I got pneumocystis carinii and I'm, you know, an IV drug using homosexual guy, I got AIDS. Do you understand the difference? That's foolishness. What kind of therapy would I choose to get rid of pneumocystis carinii? All of this stuff that's been proven. Okay, does that make sense? You strengthen the immune system. Any questions? Oh, by the way, we have over 200 different references here. Okay, so for the people that run out and say, blasphemer, blasphemer, how dare you screw with my belief system, okay, look up the references, honest to goodness, okay? You'll have a good time, okay? It will hurt, there will be smoke coming out of your ears, but you'll be fine. Enlightenment has not hurt anyone yet. Any questions?
Can you take too many vitamins?
Yes. There's a hormetic and non-hormetic effect on everything. Non-hormetic means it's completely toxic. All the sign has no benefit. It's like the aluminum adjuvants in vaccines. There's absolutely no benefit. It's 100% toxic, no value whatsoever. But it's in most every vaccine. Water. Is water good for you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's excellent for you. However, you reach a stage of too much water and you die. It becomes bad for you. You know? We drink 5 gallons of water, college hazing, we're dead. Okay, you know, vegetables good for you? Yeah. You eat 70 pounds of vegetables in an hour, you will die. You know, you like oranges? Are oranges good for you? Yeah, get hit by a crate. Okay, no. You know, you got to use common sense. But like, let's say, take vitamin C. Some people do hundreds of thousands of units injected, okay, to knock out certain diseases. Fantastic. So different therapies. We recommend for the standard person, and I mean standard, just to be healthy, 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C with bioflavonoids 4 times a day. Just standard, not with any disease. Heck, we recommend a mineral supplement. We recommend glucose iodine for everyone, recommend omega-3s for everyone, vitamin D for everyone. Why? Because everybody needs it. You don't need a bunch of exotic stuff. Do I have spirulina and chlorella every day? Yes. Does it taste like swamp water? Yes. But dear, I love you for making it. Putrid.
Good info there. You guys should definitely sub to John Bergman. Always putting out good information and is actually being silenced. So where you can find them, join them. But let's move on to the next one. Viruses are not transmissible.
The idea that viruses are invading agents that cause disease was created by Louis Pasteur in the 1800s. His theory, known as the germ theory of disease, is the catalyst for all theories existing in the medical profession. Germ theory is responsible for the use of pasteurization, vaccines, and medical treatments. At the same time that Louis Pasteur was developing his germ theory, there was another French scientist by the name of Antoine Béchamp. Béchamp came up with his own theory of disease and documented and proved it in his book, The Third Element of Blood. His theory was radically different. It was called the terrain theory. The terrain theory proposes that all living microorganisms and viruses originate within the body, not from without. He discovered the processes of fermentation, and he observed that bacteria and viruses are pleomorphic, mutating based upon the terrain which they reside. This is the exact opposite of what Louis Pasteur proposed, which states that viruses occur in nature by themselves and create disease. This, as I will explain, is impossible. Viruses originate only in the presence of a living cell. However, science also says that viruses can occur in nature. So which is it? Viruses must have a cell in order to replicate. Science has admitted this. However, they are manipulating the people into believing only partial truths. The truth is that viruses are created in their whole form within the cell. They do not come from outside the body. They come from within the body. Viruses occur in the body as a result of systemic toxicity, not because the body has been invaded by an external threat. This is the big lie that the medical profession relies upon to justify the use of vaccines and dangerous medications. Without the false germ theory to rely upon and the contagious myth that is so brainwashed into people, the medical profession would have nothing to stand on and would topple like a house of cards. So what are viruses and what are their main purpose in the human body and in the bodies of animals? Viruses dissolve toxic matter when tissue is too toxic for living microbes to feed upon without being poisoned to death. Without viruses, the human body would not be able to sustain itself in the face of systemic toxicity. Since viruses are not alive, they do not know how to infect a cell on their own. They do not have a nucleus. They do not have respiration or a digestive tract. They are not alive. Therefore, viruses must have an assisting and guiding agent to accommodate their behavior. These are called antibodies. Importantly, it must be understood that viruses do not infect cells to invade the cell and replicate. Science would have you believe that viruses replicated in nature by themselves. But we know that viruses cannot replicate unless in the presence of a living cell. Therefore, how could a virus replicate itself when a virus is not alive and does not procreate? Science has claimed that a virus has indiscriminatory actions. This means the virus is supposed to be invading all cells in the body equally. But this is not the behavior that we observe. The reality is, viruses are very specific, and they specifically dissolve specific tissues in the body. They do this with the assistance and guidance of antibodies. The virus contains the RNA and DNA necessary to dissolve specific tissues, and it acquires this from the energies of the cell. The cell has DNA. DNA is an energy form. Our bodies are not computers. We do not code. That is another mischaracterization of the human body. Energy exists in all cells and agents in the body. Cells will create the virus, therefore the cell will impart its own energy into the virus, which allows the virus, with the help of antibodies, to specifically dissolve tissue, waste, and debris. Viruses float in free suspension after they have left the cell. This is the nature of zeta potential. This is a law of the universe that keeps objects in free suspension, repelling or attracting themselves away from each other. This is an electrical energy charge known as static electricity. If viruses were not discriminatory and specific agents created by cells, we would observe everyone who gets infected with viruses all have the same level of sickness. But this is not what happens. This is a direct contradiction of virology itself, because if viruses are contagious agents that come from outside the body, the virus would not care what level of health of the immune system or of the body that person had. Now, science would have you believe that viruses contain all the necessary tools to infect each region, tissue, and organ in the body. In the human body, we have many viruses. If I drink alcohol to excess for long periods of time, I may develop hepatitis. According to science, I would have had to have caught hepatitis if we are to go by the logic of virology. Why would the body create hepatitis virus in the liver? Because the cells in the liver are attempting to cleanse the liver and themselves of toxicity to restore and reverse a toxic liver condition. Now, it has been shown that there are over 320,000 virus variants inherent to Earth and nature. Thousands of those exist within the human body, and they exist in the form of a blueprint. The blueprint exists in the genome. Now, the genome will direct the cells of the body what type of protein to manufacture. For example, if you have a damaged liver, it's going to call upon the hepatitis blueprint, and there are 3 types of hepatitis virus. The cells in the liver will therefore manufacture what they deem necessary. Depending upon the liver toxicity, you may need hepatitis A. You may need hepatitis B or C. It depends on the level of toxicity. Each virus is more or less the same in this regard. They all cleanse the liver and dissolve degenerated tissue. The level of symptoms that you will experience depends on the level of toxicity. When you have a high amount of toxicity, it will require you to have more viral activity. Thus, the breakdown of viruses means that you are going to experience a higher level of symptoms. You're going to feel more sick. Now, the reason that people experience symptoms with viruses and bacteria is because when these break down the degenerated tissue and waste, the body must eliminate what they break down. So how does the body do that? The body will eliminate 90% of toxins through the skin, and the rest through the bowels, the mouth, and the mucous membranes. This means coughing, sneezing. The skin, we have all manner of skin rashes and eruptions. White blood cells assist this behavior. Let's look at acne for an example. You have a pimple. It is white or black depending upon the toxin involved. If it is white, it uses white blood cells. If it is black, it is using red blood cells, which usually is an indication of too much iron. And it is a specific type of iron, the type from supplements which the body cannot utilize. White blood cells assist the action of expelling toxins, which are crystalline in nature, like a shard of glass that ruptures out through the skin. Now, the white blood cell helps neutralize this behavior. It tries to help push it out of the body. This is the behavior of all infection. It is always the body trying to expel toxins or foreign debris from inside the body. Viral infection is necessary in order so that the body may reverse its toxic condition. But in people that have a suppressed immune system, their body cannot deal rationally with large amounts of virus breaking down toxic waste products, and therefore they may become sick and die. But this is rare. More likely, 99% of the people who have viral activity will overcome it. That is the function of the body. The body knows very well what to do. It is smart and has innate abilities. We should nurture and learn to love the body. When someone dies due to viral or bacterial infection, it is almost always because of medical treatment. The medical industry seeks an enemy so that it can justify the use of dangerous medical procedures and treatments. Erecting a wall between you and your body will result in the fear of your body and those around you. That is the primary purpose of the contagious myth. Brainwashing people into believing that they may catch a disease from someone around them allows the medical profession to keep people in fear. When people are in fear, they are easily controlled and manipulated. The people ask for a solution, and they provide it to them, not knowing that they have now enslaved themselves to their very own mind and body. When the mind becomes internally focused on its own problems, the focus is no longer on the surroundings of that person, but is focused internally on his own problems. When the body is unhealthy, this focus will magnify greatly. When a population is too concerned with their own ailments, they will have no concern for the exterior problems. Those in power take the opportunity to exploit this nature of man, slowly taking the rights away from the individual. They know how the human mind works, and they exploit it to their favor. Viruses and bacteria are cyclical in the body. The body is on a cycle, therefore viruses are on a cycle. Just like the weather is on a cycle, so too is the body. When toxic accumulations reach its highest point in the body, the bursting tide can no longer be held back. This may occur due to seasonal changes, climate changes, and temperature changes, stresses, strains, and worries. The changes in the seasons signals the body to dump large amounts of toxin accumulations into the blood. When toxins enter the blood system, bacteria must proliferate in order to break down and eliminate the toxicity now in the blood. However, if the microbes become poisoned to death due to the toxic nature of what is in the blood and what has accumulated in the body, the cells will create and manufacture viruses that are non-living protein solvents. They are protein structures. Viruses come in and break down the matter. They eliminate it so that the body can restore homeostasis. Without viruses, the body would have no recourse to cleanse itself and would die of toxicity. The nature of viruses must be understood. Viruses are not alive. Viruses are not contagious, and I will explain why. Viruses cannot be transmitted between people. Viruses originating outside the host cell cannot infect another host. The virus will not have the necessary RNA or DNA to infect other cells. Cells will not be infected by foreign debris, and that is exactly how a foreign virus is treated by the body. Because the body cannot recognize the virus, since it does not have the key or time to its activity. As a result, the virus is treated as foreign debris. When you inject animal viral tissues, the body does not recognize it, because it did not originate within the cells of your own body. Likewise, if a virus is transmitted through the air somehow, the virus will not be recognized in this way either. We also have the functions of the mucous membrane. When mucus is observed under a microscope, it exhibits a weave pattern. This weave pattern helps filter out foreign debris. If I was somehow able to manufacture viruses in a lab by the trillions, enough to be able to spray it on a large population, this would still not spark the virus that I intended to create in the victim. However, if you are breathing this mist in, it is a foreign contamination, which the body must break down. In those cases, if it is toxic enough, the body will manufacture a respiratory virus. This is in order to break down the toxicity and eliminate it. If we look to China as an example, we can see that the air pollution there is so toxic that people have to wear masks in order to protect themselves. You can imagine, after breathing this in for an extended period of time, you are going to develop a respiratory illness. It just so happens that coronavirus is a respiratory virus. Coronaviruses have been around forever. If you have ever had a cold, it's likely that you have had a coronavirus at one point or another in your life. Coronaviruses are not new. However, the media has hyped it up and tried to convince the mass ignorant sheeple that it is new and dangerous. If we look to Italy as an example, we can see that Italy has one of the highest pollution rates in all of Europe. Therefore, you have a population there that is going to detoxify their bodies, and they're going to do this all at the same times. As I explained, viruses are cyclical because the body is cyclical. Toxic accumulations take time to build up, and they build up in the majority of the population at the same time. Therefore, the majority of the population will release their toxic accumulations around the same times as well. This behavior is what I call the illusion of viral activity. This can be exploited by those in power because the person that is observing this believes incorrectly and out of ignorance that it is contagious. But this is simply not the case. The study of viruses is flawed by nature. In order for them to be observed in laboratories, viruses must be cauterized and taken and dried. This is called irradiation. This also takes the moisture content out of the virus. This is an attenuation process that kills the virus. However, as stated, a virus is not alive. Usually, it is animal viral proteins that are used to conduct these observations. Viruses are observed in petri dish environments that are sterilized. Toxic serums are used to keep the cellular activity alive but not healthy. Cells in such an environment do not have at their disposal the full range of microbial cleansing agents as it would appear in the human body. Therefore, scientists will always observe the prominence of viral activity, because cells must use viruses to cleanse themselves in such a toxic environment. They do not have bacteria or parasites which they can call upon to consume and eliminate this toxicity. Therefore, scientists observe that viruses dissolve their own cellular activity, but this is an illusion. In order to observe viruses, viruses must be stained, which causes inaccurate observations of the virus, since the virus is not acting in a natural way as it would in the human body. Science knows this, but continues the fraud and deception anyway. Viruses are so small that they are the size of 0.1 microns. This requires incredibly powerful microscopes to see. Optical microscopes must require the staining process of viruses in order to show up on the microscope. So what does the virus behave like in the human body? The only way we will know that is if we view them in the living tissue. And we have just that, because Royal Rife invented his own microscope that could view living tissue in images up to 30,000 times their size. He was able to view microorganisms in their living state within the tissue. Rife observed that viruses and bacteria only occur due to imbalances within the bodily system. In short, he concluded that viruses and bacteria are pleomorphic, thereby confirming the findings of Antoine Béchamp in the 1800s. Rife states in his findings, quote, "In reality, it is not the bacteria themselves that produce the disease, but we believe it is the chemical constituents of these microorganisms acting upon the unbalanced cell metabolism of the human body that in actuality produces the disease. We also believe if the metabolism of the human body is perfectly balanced or poised, it is susceptible to no disease," unquote.
What anybody will discover when they search the record is that Royal Rife invented a microscope in the early 1930s, which was called the universal microscope, and its unique quality was that it was able to view viruses in their living state. Able to view microbes as small as viruses in their living state. Now today, and even then, we had the electron microscope, which can see viruses, but in a snapshot approach. They're dead. They have to irradiate them with electrons, which is the method of operation. It kills them, and therefore you're not seeing the life process. And with optical microscopes, stains are used to bring out features, and the stains themselves are toxic, and once again you've got dead samples that you're viewing. Well, Rife saw this limitation in microbiology and microscopy, and decided to address it. So his answer was to invent a microscope which used light to stain the sample, and thereby not killing it. And he was able to, using this method, obtain extreme magnification, extreme resolution, and he was able to view his samples in the living state, so he could see viruses moving around, going through their processes, which you can see with an optical microscope. But it was his ability to see viruses, which in the living state, which was his key innovation. And all of his other inventions, and there were many, all related to this, sort of bounced off the principles that the microscope operated on.
Viruses cannot cross species for a number of reasons. For one, RNA and DNA of the animal is not compatible with human RNA or DNA. According to science, they claim that animal viruses can be transmitted to humans. But the human body does not manufacture and replicate animal cells and tissue. We are humans, and when we eat animal flesh, it is converted in the stomach to human tissue, which we use for our own needs, to build muscle, for example. The only way to get animal viral tissue into a human body is through injection. Only then can animal tissue be observed in the blood. Therefore, the supposition that AIDS came from a monkey, or that coronavirus came from a bat, or that Ebola was caused by a bat, this cannot occur in nature. Now ask yourself, why is it that only in the past 40 years have these viruses occurred in nature? Why didn't they occur 1,000 years ago? Why didn't they occur 200 years ago? These viruses would have occurred in nature long before now, if what science is saying is true. It is impossible for animals to transmit viruses to humans, and it is impossible for them to transmit it between themselves. It is also impossible for humans to transmit viruses between themselves. The body does not recognize external viruses. Viruses have to be created by a cell in your own body and contain the necessary RNA or DNA given by your cell. There is no such thing as a majority viral strain. Every body is going to have a different strain because the body creates the strain for its own usage. Quoting from The Poisoned Needle by Elnor McBean, 1956, nutritional and medical doctor. Quote, "During one of our most widespread polio epidemics in 1949, contraction of polio by definite contact with other victims of the disease was not established in an elaborate study made by the New York State Health Department. The United States Public Health Service in its studies also found the same negative answer during succeeding outbreaks of polio. In short, they learned that the disease was not contagious." Time magazine commented on this unexpected revelation of these surveys by remarking that, quote, "when and where people catch polio remains a mystery," unquote. The supposition that viruses entered through the mouth and nose led the experimenters to make exhaustive tests on both animals and human beings, mostly prisoners and orphans in institutions. They were exposed by close association to polio patients, and their throats and nasal passages were frequently swabbed with matter from the patients that was supposed to contain viruses. No polio was produced in this way, and about the only noticeable after effects was that the subjects of the experiments lost their sense of taste and smell due to the damaging effects of the poisons in the serum that was used on the swabs." Unquote. Viruses only function within a human host or in petri dish environments, where they can be kept in flux. Outside of the body, they become dry and lose their moisture. While they exist on surfaces like bacteria exist on surfaces, this, as stated, is not a danger. While sanitizers will, quote, kill the virus, so too will the mechanisms in the body filtrate out viral particles from the environment. The nose hairs and the nose and mucous membranes and the saliva in the mouth will neutralize viruses upon entry to the body. If they pass these mechanisms and defenses, the body has white blood cells that will neutralize them upon contact. Even if a virus entered the body and bypassed all of its defenses, the virus is still not compatible with the body it enters. The virus must contain the specific RNA or DNA in order to be compatible with the body it enters. Also, blood-to-blood contact is not a vector of transmission of viruses. We bleed outwardly. We do not bleed inwardly. When we bleed out the body. This keeps the blood pure and keeps foreign contamination from entering back up into the body. This is one reason why AIDS and other viruses are not contagious. The only vector of transmission of viruses outside of vaccination is through blood transfusion of an infected patient. But it is not the virus that is causing the problem per se. It is the combination of foreign animal tissues that have been created in a lab, as is the case with AIDS. Such viruses have been spliced together. This can elicit certain behaviors from the innate immune system. This is the primary reason for why vaccines take so long to create. They are trying to provoke just the right amount of immune irritation without killing the injectee. They coax the results they want by splicing animal tissues together and including them with adjuvants and serums and toxic preservatives. Coronavirus is a type of severe acute respiratory syndrome. It falls in the SARS family and has flu-like symptoms. Both SARS and coronavirus is caused by man-made environmental toxicity. Chemically toxic substances from the air are breathed into the lungs and respiratory system, wherein they cannot be consumed and eliminated by living microbes. Specific non-living viruses are then manufactured by cells in the lungs to disassemble and break down these substances. Mild flu-like symptoms usually result. The symptoms associated with their removal are what occurs during SARS. Such airborne toxic substances are caused by burning plastics, formaldehyde, and factory-tainted air, which encompasses a wide array of very toxic byproducts. Older individuals with already weakened immune systems are prone to more advanced respiratory virus detoxification and will account for most deaths. This illness may crop up in millions due to dense populations, like in China, who are breathing in such air on a daily basis. This does not mean it is contagious. It is not. More than 99% of Italy's coronavirus fatalities were people who suffered from previous medical conditions, according to a study by the country's National Health Authority. More than 75% had high blood pressure. 35% had diabetes, and 1/3 suffered from heart disease. Symptoms may be higher in one individual because they require more viral activity to occur to cleanse toxicity. The body has the makeup and manufacturing blueprints already in the genome and inside the cell to produce 320,000 different viral variants. The genome directs each cell what type of protein to manufacture. This includes viral protein structures known as viruses. Therefore, even small amounts of viral proteins can be found in times of non-cleansing if tissue is magnified like the PCR test does. Viral proteins must be converted by cells into whole viral structures and then encoded to specifically dissolve specific tissues in and around cells. This is why we do not observe viruses attacking all cells in the body. They are very specific solvents that are discriminatory, not non-discriminatory, as science has stated. Coronaviruses are in fact real viruses. It is merely a type of cold virus. Not only can they mask the cases by claiming it is COVID-19, it could be any COVID strain and be able to be claimed as COVID-19, because there is literally no difference between COVID-19 and other COVID strains. And naturally, the test will not see the difference because there is not a big enough difference to note. Furthermore, the PCR test is observing genetic material left over from the virus. This means that if you've ever had a cold in your life and you happen to have had a coronavirus, it is very likely you will be labeled as a positive case, even though you are not experiencing any symptoms. There is always some level of viral activity in small amounts working in the body. It is only when large amounts of viral activity are called upon and working that you will experience symptoms. When viruses break down large amounts of toxic matter, that matter must be expelled by the body somehow. It must come out of the body. It uses mucus, coughing, sweating, skin excretions, and bowels to remove them from the body. If it is a respiratory virus, there will be respiratory symptoms to expel toxins from the lungs. Viruses are created in the following way. When toxicity has reached a point wherein it can no longer be held back by the body, mass amounts of toxins will be dumped into the blood system. In order for the body to get rid of these toxic accumulations now in the blood, bacteria come in to feed upon this matter as the first primary method of removal. The processes of phagocytosis play a role as well. Parasites and fungus are also involved in small amounts, depending upon the toxic nature of the substances. However, if the tissues are so toxic and the substances so toxic in the body, living microbes will be poisoned to death when they attempt to consume this matter. Therefore, the body must utilize another cleansing method to get rid of this toxicity. The body has viruses to accommodate this situation. In such circumstances, cells come together as a whole unit, conspiring to cleanse themselves and their surroundings of toxicity, to restore cellular tissues and fluids. This allows new cellular activity to thrive. In order for a cell to manufacture a virus, it does so in the following ways. First, the cell will call upon the viral protein already existing in the cell. The genome plays a part, and the cell will call upon the blueprint of whatever virus is needed and determined by the cell to cleanse itself and its surroundings. The viral protein is called into the nucleus, wherein the virus is structured into its whole form. Before, all that existed was viral protein particles. Now, the whole structure of the virus has been manufactured and assembled in the nucleus. It leaves the nucleus where it is housed within the cell. The virus will obtain its RNA or DNA by the cell. Since the cell contains DNA, that means the virus being manufactured by the cell will also impart its DNA to the virus. This process allows the virus, with the help of antibodies, which are a type of white blood cell, to dissolve specific tissues. Replication continues in this way until the cell can no longer hold the viruses in itself. At this point, the virus wall will rupture on one side, allowing the viruses to escape and enter the rest of the body. The cell, while ruptured, is not destroyed in the process. The cell can easily heal this small rupture. This set of viruses will continue for 72 hours. After 72 hours, the cell will manufacture a new set of viruses with different cleansing mechanisms, after the first set has been exhausted by the body. The second set will be a little bit different than the first set, but both sets are the same type of strain. The second set will cleanse what the first set did not.
So, Polly, thank you so much for sending this in. Let's listen to what Dr. Martin has to say.
We see people running headlong into hell because they think it's the right way. Always pay attention to the one guy standing up as people are going over the cliff saying, no, not this way. Look at these people. They're destroying themselves. Look the other direction. That's what history teaches us. Look the other direction. Look the other direction. You have enough information, friends. Dr. Martin recently came out. Brilliant man. I believe he's stationed right here in the state of Minnesota out of Rochester, the Mayo Clinic. Just a brilliant guy. But an individual during this time that they had, and the other speakers that were there were Robert Kennedy, Judy A. Mikovadis. She's a PhD. And then we had Rocco Galaci, and then Sasha Stone, and then we had Dr. David Martin. Well, a question came up, and David Martin jumped into the conversation, Dr. David Martin did, and he gave an outstanding job of exposing the actions of this fraudulent criminal conspiracy, he said, that is taking place on a global scale. And notice the words as to what he said, because they kept bringing up the word vaccine, right? He said they're using the word vaccine to sneak this under public health exemptions. He said this is not a vaccine. He goes on, it is a medical device, not a drug. This is Dr. David Martin just yesterday. Listen to this.
And how much you think is just incompetence.
Rocco, let's make sure we're clear on something. Let's stipulate that this is not a vaccine.
Right.
I mean, we need to be really clear. We're using the term vaccine to sneak this thing under public health exemptions. This is not a vaccine. This is a mRNA packaged in a fat envelope that is delivered to a cell. It is a medical device designed to stimulate the human cell into becoming a pathogen creator. It is not a vaccine. Vaccines actually are a legally defined term, and they're a legally defined term under public health law. They're a legally defined term under CDC and FDA standards, and a vaccine specifically has to stimulate both an immunity within the person receiving it, but it also has to disrupt transmission. And that is not what this is. They have been abundantly clear in saying that the mRNA strand that is going into the cell is not to stop transmission. It is a treatment. But if it was discussed as a treatment, it would not get the sympathetic ear of public health authorities, because then people would say, well, what other treatments are there? The use of the term vaccine is unconscionable for both the legal definition term of it, but also because it actually is the sucker punch to open and free discourse. Because by saying vaccine, you dump it into a thing where you could be anti or pro the therapy. But if you actually talked about it as a therapy, remember, and people forget this, Moderna was started as a chemotherapy company for cancer, not a vaccine manufacturer for SARS. If we said we're going to give people prophylactic chemotherapy for the cancer they don't have, you'd be laughed out of a room because it's a stupid idea. That's exactly what this is. This is a mechanical device in the form of a very small packet of technology that is being inserted into the human system to activate the cell to become a pathogen manufacturing site. And I refuse to stipulate in any conversations that this is in fact a vaccine issue. The only reason why the term is being used is to abuse the 1905 Jacobson case that has been misrepresented since it was written.
Okay,
and
so
if we were
there you have it
honest
again,
with
friends.
this, we would actually.
There you have it again. It's a word play. You're being lied to. Words are important. Words, by the way, the definition of words are carriers. They've even redefined, by the way, pandemic. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. But every step of the way, the revisionists are working along with the conspirators to take more control over your lives. And you can see that this is not happening just in America. This is happening on a global scale. But thank God for good doctors that are giving us the information to decide as to what is taking place. Love you by what we do. Talk to you in 23.
All right, so that was talking about it not being part of a medical procedure, but it's more of a medical device, and that's pretty interesting. They're using the word vaccine to sneak this under public exemptions.
When was the last time you watched your home movies? If you're like most, there's a box in your closet of videotapes, film reels, and photos that don't get watched. Worse, they're degrading.
Kind of interested in possibly listening to this whole thing. I think we will. Let's listen to this, and then we'll call it a night after we listen to this whole thing. We started at the 53-minute mark, and we listened for the last 4 minutes. But let's watch the whole hour together and see what he has to say. It was very interesting.
Use Legacy Box, and we've been featured on Good Morning America, Rachel Ray, and The Today Show.
Dust off those recorded moments and preserve your family's history so it can be easily passed down for generations. Experience peace of mind and enjoy
townhall.com. If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to 800-29.
One of you said to me recently that we shouldn't rock the boat. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that I am a boat.
Oh, okay. Hello, friends, as well as a few enemies, scoffers, atheists, skeptics, lunatics, weirdos, and assorted bad guys, and of course, all of you good guys and girls out there. Welcome to the Sons of Liberty. You have with yours truly, Mr. Bradley Dean. Just for the record, there's wrong titles up on social media platforms, okay? It has nothing to do with the show today, just for the record. Okay, what we're going to be talking about is they are using the word vaccines to sneak this under, friends, to sneak this under public health exemptions. That's what we're going to be talking about, okay? And I'm getting feedback coming through my headphones with answer back concerning what I'm saying right now. So anyways, friends, if you want to go ahead, yes, I'm irritated, to say the least. Folks, if you want to call in at any time, please do stick to the topic. 1-866-582-9933. 1-866-582-9933. If you want to check us out online, go to sonsoflibertyradio.com. sonsoflibertyradio.com. That's who we are, what it is that we've done, and what we're continuously doing. We're going to be in Michigan in the next week and a half here, as well as in Tennessee. So if you'd like to check it out, sonsoflibertyradio.com. You can also book us at 1-866-233-0747, 1-866-233-0747. Also go over to sonsoflibertymedia.com. There's 13 to 15 articles there combating the lies through the mainstream media. sonsoflibertymedia.com. Subscribe there. Subscribe at sonsoflibertymedia.com. Also go to the right side of the top page. The top right side of the page there. You will find the platform in which we're on, and go ahead and join us on Top Chat. You can also jump over onto beforeitsnews.com. Same thing there, beforeitsnews.com. And go ahead and click onto that platform and join us on Top Chat. If you want to call in at any time, you can. 1-866-582-9933. 1-866-582-9933. Now, folks, if this is the first time listening to the sonsoflibertyradio.com, do remember that this is the radio show where we think for ourselves and make not the others the measure of our conduct. And why is that, friends? Because it's a terrible place to be when your brains are in someone else's head. Now, really quick, if you guys want to go ahead and change that title on social media platforms, I'd greatly appreciate it, because they have not been changed yet, namely on our social media platforms. Again, folks, if you want to call in, please do. Again, let's stick to the topic here. We've got much to cover in a short amount of time. As you know, I did an interview sometime back at the very beginning of this pandemic, which is being exposed more and more and more and more day by day, week after week, as things roll out and play out in real time here. When I did an interview, I was asked by Alan Keyes, who ran against Barack Obama back in, I think it was 2003, 2004, maybe it was 2008, I don't remember rightly, but he brought me up on his show and he asked me the question concerning the coronavirus. This was when it was brand new. And what I did is I did a little due diligence before I jumped on his show, and I said, well, ever since I've been born, I can tell you that, well, in Vietnam, they had 1960s. They had the war in Vietnam, as I just said. By the way, we found out in that Tonkin Bay that we were the ones responsible for creating and starting and inciting that war with Vietnam. But again, how was it sold to the American people? They attacked us. Do you remember this? Yep, this is history, friends. This is a conspiracy that was blown. The cover was blown off of it long ago, Jeremiah 11:9. Going to the 1970s, we had the energy crisis. Going to the 1980s, we had AIDS, the war in Lebanon, Grenada, Libya, the war in Panama in the 1990s, Gulf War, Somalia War, Bosnian War, illegal drug wars. Then in 2000, we had the Afghan War, the Iraq War, the Syrian War. The Y2K was going to destroy all of us. Do you remember all this? And it's amazing people haven't recollected this, but then again, they do what they do because they depend upon your short-term memories. That's why they're doing what they're doing today. In 2001, we had anthrax. That was going to kill us. Do you remember this? Then we had 2002, the West Nile virus was going to kill us. Then we had 2003, SARS is going to kill us. 2005, the bird flu was going to kill us. 2006, E. coli was going to kill us. 2008, collapse is going to destroy all of us. Then in 2009, the swine flu was going to kill us. This is 10 years ago. I'm going to play some audio just so you can understand that they tried this 10 years ago. The same players trying to push the same propaganda. They're doing it 10 years later. For those that did not know, they tried it 10 years earlier outside of what they did to the dead zone on television in 2003. So this has been pre-planned for a long time. Then we had the 2012, the Mayan calendar predicted the end of the world. Then in Korea, North Korea, namely, we had in 2013 that they were going to cause World War III. This all coming from your government and the mainstream media, okay, to keep you in a perpetual state of fear so they can continuously change things and garner more control over the people that are ignorant enough to believe that what they're telling you is actually the truth. You know, I just wish we would listen to some of our forefathers and the things that they had to share with us. We had the Maximilien Robespierre. He was actually a French individual, representative in that country. He said the secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. And I'll tell you what, there's a whole lot of people in this country that think that they have the answers, and they're acting just like the ones that they say they don't trust, friends, on so many different fronts. Let me go back to this in ending, bringing forth a consummation concerning the perpetual state of fear that our government and the mainstream media continuously tries to keep us in. 2014, the Ebola virus was going to kill us all. In 2015, we had ISIS that was going to kill us all. In 2016, we had the Zika virus that was going to kill us all. Folks, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. In 2020, the coronavirus was going to kill us. It's always something, friends. It's always something. And remember again, before we kick this show off today, what General Douglas MacArthur said of the United States government back in 1957. Our government, America, has kept us in a perpetual state of fear, kept us in a continuous stampede of patriotic fervor with the cry of national emergency. Everything is always promulgated or predicated upon what? Emergency, emergency, emergency. Folks, that's the voice of tyrants. And it's the creative slaves if you take heed to them. He goes on, said General Douglas MacArthur in 1957, always there has been some terrible evil at home or some monstrous foreign power, or how about an invisible enemy, friends, like the one that we're being sold today, that was going to gobble us up if we did not blindly rally behind it. Did you get that download, friends? I hope I turned some lights on. I hope I dispelled some of the lies, because we're going to talk about more of this. I'm going to play some more audio by Dr. Martin and David McKnight in the up-and-coming segment. sonsoflibertyradio.com. Be right back.
It was William Booth who founded the Salvation Army that said...
Remember, Lavender Buds.
Come back again to the Sons of Liberty, friends. The title of the show today is They Are Using the Word Vaccines to Sneak This Under Public Health Exemptions. We're also going to be doing and playing some audio for you, vaccine deaths that the mainstream media is not reporting days after, a day after, 2 days after, 3 days after. They're dying off. They're censoring this information from the people on a global scale. Again, just for the record, we're giving you the information that nobody wants to give because they're too busy going right along with the show that's being played out in Washington, D.C. on so many fronts today. Now, what I want to do is I want to highlight this quote again by Mr. Robespierre. The secret of freedom lies in educating the people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. And what I want to do is I want to go over to this piece of audio really, well, actually, let me tee this up before I play this audio, because I'm showing you what we highlighted right when this pandemic first came back out, that 9-10 months ago. And one of the things that we also came out with was some audio from the Dead Zone. I'm not going to play that today, but they were using words back in 2003 such as virus. They were using words like mask, lockdowns, authorized quarantines. No such thing, by the way, friends, constitutionally. Coronavirus, they were using the word coronavirus. For your family's safety, swab the inside of your mouth with the Q-tip. They were using words like blood test during this television program called Dead Zone. They were using words like high fever, respiratory distress, tracking and treating. That viruses come from China. I'm not kidding, friends. I'm not making this up. Chloroquine. Sound familiar, friends? Because this is the stuff that was being thrown on the American people back in 2003. And I'm not going to go through this whole timeline, friends, because I've done it so many times that there's no excuse as to why we are where we're at today in any sense of the word. Everybody's so sick and tired of the games that are being played right now. I can give you a firsthand experience today. I walked into a store. Lady said, "Did you hear what the governor had to say yet? He's supposed to be broadcasting at 2 o'clock today." And I said to her, "Ma'am, I don't really care what he has to say. Because the fact of the matter is what he is doing now is so far out of his scope of authority, that makes him an outlaw. I'm not breaking the law. I'm pointing my finger to the law that exposes him for his crimes. So I could care less as to what he has to say. I've not changed the way that I live my life, and nor am I going to change the way that I live my life. Okay? And that's the bottom line. Oh, yes, I know. We totally agree. This, that, and the other thing. And everybody agrees with the information that we're given, but they're pretending along with the tyrants concerning their pretended authority. And let me remind you, friends, what these governors and what these mayors are doing is a pretended authority. There is no law behind what they're doing. We've highlighted that 1.5 million times as well. Is that an over-exaggeration? Maybe just a little bit, but folks, I'm telling you what, enough is enough. I mean, to say the least. I want you to listen to this little compilation. This is from a decade ago. Okay? Again, just showing you how you're being lied to, because a decade ago, friends, the same players of today used the same exact tactics as I've already highlighted, friends. They used the same script, but they failed. And I think it's time that we understand that they've tried the same thing. And guess who their spokesperson was, friends? Anthony Fauci. Same exact script, just 10 years later, hoping that the people forgot that they tried this before and it failed miserably. Okay? And as I've always continuously stated, friends, unless these people are prosecuted, they're going to do it again on another day, and it's exactly what they're doing. Listen to this short compilation carefully.
Doctors in Canada are being told to stay away from a batch of 170,000 swine flu vaccines following 6 reports of allergic reactions. The vaccine in question was produced by GlaxoSmithKline, which insists none of the other vaccines it has distributed around the world need to be pulled.
Analysts say Glaxo stands to make more than $2.5 billion in sales in the next 6 months from the swine flu. And that's before the company introduces its latest product, a protective face mask. The company makes the second biggest selling drug for people who have caught the H1N1 virus and is working on a vaccine.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is joining us this morning. Dr. Fauci, good morning.
Good morning.
What is your best argument for the vaccine to people who
10
feel
years
that
ago.
The chances
10
of
years
me
ago.
or my child getting severely sick from H1N1
compilation.
is so mild that I'm not willing to take a chance with a vaccine that is brand new and may have long-term side effects that we're not yet aware of?
Well, first of all, if you look at what's happening with this pandemic right now, we're seeing that
10
the
years
susceptibility
ago.
to not only infection but also
10
to the
years ago.
complications of infection is skewed very much towards young people and pregnant women. Pregnant women have a 4 to 6 times greater probability of getting into serious trouble with influenza than people who are not pregnant. And if you look at the history of these vaccines,
and
Folks,
also,
go ahead and
I
fade
add
that
to
out,
that,
Judah.
I insist
10 years ago, the same, you can turn me back up. 10 years ago, the same exact script, the same exact players talking about a pandemic that failed. 10 years later, they're doing it again. This time, they've got 88% of the fools in this country wearing masks that don't work over a virus they can't prove. Jumping over the top of parents to get into the arms of their children to vaccinate. Oh my goodness, Americans, am I embarrassed for you, to say the least. That was 10 years ago. Did you hear what I said? That was 10 years ago. That was Anthony Fauci talking about the pandemic 10 years ago that failed miserably. Miserably, friends. The same exact script. Right? You know how many people in this country talk about the conservatives and the church and the good guys? And you know what? If this is the best that you've got, this explains exactly why you're in trouble today. And it is. Because you've made the flesh your arm to trust in. Jeremiah 17:5, no question about it. I'm absolutely embarrassed for the people in this country, again, to say the least. Now what I want you to hear is I want you to hear David Knight. And I want you to listen to some of the things that he has to say for the next 3 minutes before I take a hard break. And these are vaccine deaths that you're not hearing about in the mainstream media. And again, keep in mind, you're not hearing about it in the mainstream media because it exposes them for who it is that they are and what it is that they are doing to the people, namely the innocent. Listen to this.
Let's take a look at the vaccine now, the Trump vaccine.
We had, over the last several days, this is Pfizer vaccine primarily, has been rolling out around the world. We've had a Swiss patient die shortly after receiving the Pfizer vaccine. An Israeli man died just 2 hours after receiving his first dose. And then in Lucerne, this last Wednesday, one of the first people in the country to receive the Pfizer vaccine died. But of course, again, as I pointed out, we're seeing this over and over again. They're putting it out to people who are elderly, and by definition, if you're elderly, you probably have several comorbidities. Or people who are already sick and maybe not even elderly. But typically they're putting out to the elderly and the sick. They're the most vulnerable. They have to get it first. And then when they die with the vaccine, they didn't die from the vaccine. Even though people who didn't even die with COVID are counting as having died from COVID.
Exactly.
So Pfizer, the vaccine, is being given primarily to elderly people in Switzerland and other places. In Sweden, remember that was Switzerland, this is Sweden. Another coronavirus vaccination death of an elderly Swede, 84-year-old Swedish man, said to have died of suspected cardiac failure a day after being vaccinated.
Day after being vaccinated, yeah.
The death has been referred for possible investigation. But he's said to have had multiple underlying illnesses. Well, nobody cared about that when it was COVID, right? Oh, no, they died from COVID. And they would say, well, it's still a death from COVID, even if it just, they were going to die in a few months and they died earlier because of the stress of that. The stress of the vaccine, which, one healthy young nurse said, I had a fever that went up to 105 degrees. That is above the threshold of high. That is dangerous. Now, if you have somebody who is elderly, who has comorbidities, and they get a dangerously high fever like that, do you think that might be the cause of their death? No. Of course not. That'd be foolish to think something like that. 26% of the population in Sweden does not want to take the vaccine. 46% said that they would. The other people are still not sure.
Isn't that crazy?
Death of a pediatric assistant 2 days after receiving the COVID vaccine puts Portuguese health authorities on alert. So here we have Israel, we have Switzerland, Sweden, Portugal, all these different places. But it's never a problem. It's never a problem with the vaccine, even though this person is 41 years old. She died 2 days.
That's exactly right. All these people are dying off from the COVID vaccinations, right? And they never equate it to the vaccination. They say that they died from other mysterious diseases and they need to investigate into it. And they expect that you're going to be stupid enough to believe it, friends. Oh, by the way, Dr. Martin said it's not a vaccine. We're going to come right back to that. sonsoflibertyradio.com.
Now with orders to stay at home, public health concerns, the reality of illness due to pathogens and viruses, your health.
Preparing for anything.
Real anti-inflammation.
History would not repeat itself. People are saying, oh, this is terrible what's happening in D.C. Did you know that there was bricks found all over Washington, D.C.? In front of buildings with glass? Do you know anything about the history of brown shirts in modern government in America? I mean, I sat across the table from Andrew Young, the former mayor of Atlanta, for 3 hours. He was right next to Martin Luther King during the whole civil rights movement. And they knew all the well that when they were having peaceful marches, that it was J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI that was sending in provocateurs to disrupt, to make everybody think that Martin Luther King Jr. and his movement was nothing but a bunch of trouble. And what did they do? They had the ignorant people in this country believing that somehow or another that Martin Luther King was a communist. The mainstream media was doing its job back then. Folks, they've been busted in Ferguson, Missouri, after the verdict concerning the police officer in killing Michael Brown, who continuously charged him. We had on live radio with us during that time, during those alleged riots, where these individuals were having interracial services in their backyard, where they told us on radio to the nation that what we see in the media is not what we see in our backyard. This individual told us that we have caught the media, namely CNN, gathering 50 people at a mall and putting them together and then filming it like it was a big get together, like it was a big riot, like a big uproar. Why are they doing that? Because they need, folks, domestic insurrection so that ignorant people in this country will cry out to the government for more control. That's what they're trying to do. I am all over the country, all over the time, friends. I'm all over the country, all of the time, and I have yet to see what they are creating. It's like William Randolph Hearst when he said, you know, you take the pictures, I'll create the war. You take the pictures, I'll create the war. He said, you furnish the pictures, I'll create the war. This is what the media is doing. Okay, they want you thinking that everybody's divided, but again, going back to what I've shared with you 1,000 times, it's time for the American people to begin to communicate with each other because we see that these unlawful, unconstitutional, forced compliance lockdowns, business shutdowns, and the list goes on, they're trying to separate the people one from another because they want to wage war. They want you pitted against one another, friends. But if you look at the history of the War of Independence, where did they meet? They met in the taverns, they met in the churches, they met in homes, they met in home services. Do you get what I'm saying? They're trying to divide the people one way or another. I want to say to all those people that are just caught up into this and you call yourself Christians, and I see your comments, this is just turning into a terrible, terrible situation. I want to remind all of you that believe that this is real, okay, going on between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Keep in mind, they're both two actors that have been put in place by the powers that are tolerated, okay? They got the American people warring over against voter fraud, which we all well know is real voter fraud. We also know, friends, that voter fraud applies both ways. You wouldn't have either candidate put up in place if it wasn't for voter fraud because neither one of these individuals are legitimate candidates. And I could easily, within 2 minutes, convince you of that if I had either one of these clowns in the circus of politics on this radio show to ask them simple questions concerning the U.S. Constitution and their constitutional delegated authorities from we the people. I guarantee you I'd have them confounded like that. It's all scripted. They're both reading teleprompters. And the fact of the matter is, for those that still haven't figured this out, you wouldn't have a Joe Biden if Donald Trump was doing his job. Donald Trump did nothing concerning the first cycle with Hillary Clinton, but call her out for her crimes of treason and lying, and the list goes on. He promises a special prosecutor. He gets into the people's White House during his presidential speech. Within 41 seconds, he tells the American people, his supporters, right? He tells them that the American people owe Hillary Clinton a major debt of gratitude for her service to our country. Yet prior to that, he was doing nothing but highlighting her crimes and promising the rule of law and to bring in a special prosecutor to deal with Hillary Clinton. What does he tell the press and the American people once he gets into the people's White House? The Clintons are good people. What have you heard during this cycle, friends? I'm just asking you, appealing to your common sense. What have you been hearing from Donald Trump? What has he been saying about Joe Biden and his son? Treason, 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 treason. That's a violation of anybody's law in anybody's country. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to read it, go to Article 3, Section 3 so you can understand what I'm talking about. Remember, Donald Trump said that the DOJ, verbatim, we played the audio, said, I can do with the Department of Justice whatsoever I will. It's mine to do what I want with it, said Donald Trump. Verbatim. That's exactly what he said. You have a Joe Biden today because Donald Trump and his DOJ failed to prosecute Joe Biden, his son. By the way, this applies to the Obamas too. Remember during the Iran fiasco, Donald Trump blamed Barack Hussein Obama for his crimes against the people in stealing our money and then giving it to Iran. And then once they use it against our people, allegedly, right? What's the first thing he does? He calls him out for treason. The very next day, does Donald Trump have Barack Obama arrested for his crimes against we the people? Absolutely not. What does he do? He lays sanctions on Iran. How did he get away with that? Because the people in this country were too stupid to figure that one out. Wait a second. If Barack Obama's committing the act of treason, then he needs to be prosecuted for his crimes. Is that what Donald Trump did? No. He's called out Joe Biden for treason. How many times, Americans? He's called him out for treason, for his crimes against we the people. Has he taken that DOJ? Has he brought back in the rule of law? And has he prosecuted the likes of Joe Biden? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hey, folks, this is how you destroy countries. You withhold the execution of the laws. Yet when you look at any representative, I don't care in what capacity, a judge, a congressman, a representative, the president of the United States of America, it doesn't matter. In any capacity in government, what do they promise to do? To uphold the laws against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, so help me God. Have they done that? No. If they haven't done it, then the only thing that's left for us to come to conclusion with concerning what's going on in Washington, D.C. is the fact that this is what they want. See, because the more domestic insurrection that's created, the more people get afraid. And what's the media doing? They're pushing more unwarranted fear on the people. And what are they doing? As they're pushing unwarranted fear on the people, they're garnering more control. And what they're doing is they're finding the one or two per every 1,000 Americans that are crying out to the government, come in, where's the military? Where's the call for martial law? You know what? We need Mr. President to come back and save the day. Did he save the day the first 5 years? Just answer the question. If he hasn't, what makes you think he's going to do it today? And when you put that up against Psalm 12, verse 8, the Bible tells us the vilest of men walk on every side when what? He said, the wicked walk on every side when the vilest of men are exalted. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 20, verse 8, that when the king, our law, supremacy clause, Article 6, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, when the king sitteth on the throne of judgment, he scattereth away evil. Is that what's happening? No. America, you are under attack like crazy, like never before. This would have never happened under Barack Hussein Obama in a million years. And what's worse than all this, and I'll bring it to a conclusion, is the fact that you've got all these people going out and crying for their man that failed to do for them what he promised to do for them. Just last week, through this omnibus bill, we found that this president signed off on a bill that literally gives billions and billions of dollars, not to just Bill Gates and Gavi, G-A-V-I, but also to our sworn enemies. And the American people are crying. You know what they're doing? In their ignorance, they're crying out for more judgment. They want more judgment. We want our guy back. We want our guy back. Because you failed to listen to John Adams, because you failed to listen to George Washington when he said, beware of the party spirit. And how many people have I seen post just in the last half hour talking about those stupid Democrats and those stupid Democrats? Well, I want to tell you this. First of all, show me in the U.S. Constitution where there's party affiliation, number one. Put that up against Article 4, Section 4. Number two, it shows the people in this country how stupid you are because you have not put two and two together yet. You claim to be the right when in fact you've been duped like nobody's business. And your enemies are even trying to tell you how you've been duped, but you refuse to see it. Put that up against Jeremiah 5:21. America, I'm sorry to say this, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, and I've said it in the past, and here we are again. The judgments are going to increase in this country because the church and the people in this country refuse to repent for their sins. They are now trying to justify the unjustifiable, and God will have none of it. You better know your history, friends, because what's coming down the line isn't going to be good in any sense of the word. And on top of that, we're going to be talking about vaccinations and what this is not. It is not a vaccination. Who opened the stage up for these clowns to attack the American people more than this administration? Nobody has. But they're in D.C. worshiping the fact that they want the man back.
At the Sons of Liberty, we are in the trenches doing what it takes to protect our liberty. If you are
COVID vaccine, energy, nutrition
times, I
444.
Welcome back again to the Sons of Liberty. They're sharing, by the way. I'm talking to my Top Chat friends. You want to know where to go to replay this video? I've said it 15 times. I literally have said it 15 times. sonsoflibertymedia.com. Subscribe. Go to the right side of the page. We're right there. Top Chat. We're always going to be there on sonsoflibertymedia.com. Or go over to beforeitsnews.com. We're on the front page. Click onto it. Join us on Top Chat. If you want to call in, now's the time to do it. If we have time to do so, 1-866-582-9933. I got to tell you something, friends. You talk to somebody with a half of an understanding, an iota of an understanding of history, they can see how the people are drinking this Kool-Aid in. And again, the only thing I can do is my job. The only thing I can do is take that trumpet, put it up to my mouth, and blow it again. That doesn't make me claim to be something I'm not, but that's what I do. It's what I've always done. Ezekiel 33. America's in trouble because America's ignorant. America's in trouble because they claim they want the answers, but when you give them the answers, they don't like the answers because it requires and it mandates that they do something about the problem. They want someone else to sacrifice for their freedoms. They don't want it to be them. I want to tell you something. If that's you, you don't deserve the freedom that we have. You don't deserve it whatsoever. You're a part of the problem. You're a fraternizer. You hear about the guy in the north and on the south? He wanted to stand in the center, so he tried to appease the north by wearing a north uniform, and he tried to appease the south by appeasing the south by wearing a south uniform. So he got in the middle of a battle. You know what took place? All of a sudden, the north started shooting at his south side, and the south started shooting at his north side. He was a dead man. It reminds me of Scripture in Revelations 3, verse 19. Where he says, I'd rather have you hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. I will puke you out of my mouth. I will have nothing to do with you. Let's get to this final point here. I'm telling you, friends, I got an attitude, a righteous indignation concerning what's going on today. You know, I seen something yesterday pop up with Bonhoeffer. And it's interesting how Americans love to praise Bonhoeffer. They just love Bonhoeffer. They love to praise the dead saints, is what they do. They persecute them when they're alive, but they praise them when they're dead. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Do we live that life here? Absolutely we do. They praise the dead ones, and they persecute the living ones. Same thing happening today. But everybody loves Bonhoeffer and his willingness to go back from America after a book was released called Cost of Discipleship. He leaves America when he could have stayed. He could have saved his own little keister. What did he decide to do? He decided to go back and face off with the tyrant named Adolf Hitler. At the end of the day, he was martyred for it. Americans today love to praise him, but I guarantee you, they love to praise him so much that, you know what? They'll praise him, but they won't obey the God that he served. 1 Corinthians 11:1. These are the guys walking around with masks on. These are the guys still trying to figure out why the president of the United States of America hasn't prosecuted the bad guys, because they haven't figured out that he's a part of the game. Oh, Bradley, that's just insane. No, I proved that 1,000,000 times over. Look at the omnibus bill that they just passed last week, friends. If that's not the act of treason, there is no act of treason in any sense of the word. Interesting, because on Sons of Liberty Media just this morning, Tim Brown highlighted even more unconstitutional spending in the omnibus bill that wasn't talked about, that aids the communist agenda on a global scale. And guess whose money he used to do it, friends? Your money. Did you allocate that money for that? Did you pay taxes so the government could pick it up and fund your enemies? Nope, but that's what's happening. But people in this country just want to keep acting as if it's not happening. There is a book of Lamentations, friends. Rest assured. Jeremiah went for 70 years warning the people. They didn't listen to him. And then all of a sudden, when his words of prophecy started to come back, we have not a more sure word of prophecy than concerning the word of God. The fact of the matter is, after the fact, when the word started to come past, they go back to Jeremiah and say, Jeremiah, will you seek the Lord for us? Will you seek the Lord? Yeah, you told us this, and we even threw you in the pit, and we treated you badly. We scoffed you. We mocked you. We beat you. But we're sorry for that. Listen, we're in trouble. We realize you're right now. Their backs are up against the wall, and that's the end of God's mercy. Now cometh judgment. Let me say this. Jonah 2:4 comes to my aid right now. They that observe lying vanities, you forsake your own mercies. Those that observe lying vanities, what you're seeing today, you forsake your own mercies. Get back to the Word of God. There's your answer. Right there. You have no other options. Because one way or another, you're going to end up there because all roads lead to the judgment seat of Christ. Period. I'm going to go there. You know, I remember what Martin Luther said back in the 1500s. He said, the man that's ready for judgment is the man that longs to be freed from his sin. The man that longs to be freed from anything that offends Christ. And we see people running headlong into hell because they think it's the right way. Always pay attention to the one guy standing up as people are going over the cliff saying, no, not this way. Look at these people. They're destroying themselves. Look the other direction. That's what history teaches us. Look the other direction. Look the other direction. You have enough information, friends. Dr. Martin recently came out. Brilliant man. I believe he's stationed right here in the state of Minnesota out of Rochester, the Mayo Clinic. Just a brilliant guy. But an individual during this time that they had, and the other speakers that were there were Robert Kennedy, Judy A. Mikovadis, she's a PhD, and then we had Rocco Galaci, and then Sasha Stone, and then we had Dr. David Martin. Well, a question came up, and David Martin jumped into the conversation, Dr. David Martin did, and he gave an outstanding job of exposing the actions of this fraudulent criminal conspiracy, he said, that is taking place on a global scale. And notice the words as to what he said, because they kept bringing up the word vaccine, right? He said they're using the word vaccine to sneak this under public health exemptions. He said this is not a vaccine. He goes on, it is a medical device, not a drug. This is Dr. David Martin just yesterday. Listen to this.
And how much you think is just incompetence.
Rocco, let's make sure we're clear on something. Let's stipulate that this is not a vaccine.
Right.
I mean, we need to be really clear. We're using the term vaccine to sneak this thing under public health exemptions. This is not a vaccine. This is a mRNA packaged in a fat envelope that is delivered to a cell. It is a medical device designed to stimulate the human cell into becoming a pathogen creator. It is not a vaccine. Vaccines actually are a legally defined term, and they're a legally defined term under public health law. They're a legally defined term under CDC and FDA standards, and a vaccine specifically has to stimulate both an immunity within the person receiving it, but it also has to disrupt transmission. And that is not what this is. They have been abundantly clear in saying that the mRNA strand that is going into the cell is not to stop transmission. It is a treatment. But if it was discussed as a treatment, it would not get the sympathetic ear of public health authorities, because then people would say, well, what other treatments are there? The use of the term vaccine is unconscionable for both the legal definition term of it, but also because it actually is the sucker punch to open and free discourse. Because by saying vaccine, you dump it into a thing where you could be anti or pro the therapy. But if you actually talked about it as a therapy, remember, and people forget this, Moderna was started as a chemotherapy company for cancer, not a vaccine manufacturer for SARS. If we said we're going to give people prophylactic chemotherapy for the cancer they don't have, you'd be laughed out of a room because it's a stupid idea. That's exactly what this is. This is a mechanical device in the form of a very small packet of technology that is being inserted into the human system to activate the cell to become a pathogen manufacturing site. And I refuse to stipulate in any conversations that this is in fact a vaccine issue. The only reason why the term is being used is to abuse the 1905 Jacobson case that has been misrepresented since it was written.
Okay,
and
so
if we were
there you have it
honest
again,
with
friends.
this, we would actually.
There you have it again. It's a word play. You're being lied to. Words are important. Words, by the way, the definition of words are carriers. They've even redefined, by the way, pandemic. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. But every step of the way, the revisionists are working along with the conspirators to take more control over your lives. And you can see that this is not happening just in America. This is happening on a global scale. But thank God for good doctors that are giving us the information to decide as to what is taking place. Love you by what we do. Talk to you in 23.
All right. So that was awesome. Thank you so much, Paulie, for sending that. Great to top off what we watched this evening with that. So much obliged. And I hope you guys enjoyed it and were edified by it. Hey, Jacob, Marble Water, Alex, looks like you guys made it through. And of course, Miss Debbie. But we will go ahead and call it a night for tonight. And TSL has their broadcast tomorrow on Sunday evening, so check that out. And Lord willing, we'll be back here on Monday for Monday's meet. So our meeting Mondays. So I need to put the link of what we just watched, copy, into the description here. Let me do that before we what was that? Sons of Liberty? Sons of Liberty broadcast. And then put that link in the description. So that's there already. So I sometimes say I'll do that and then totally forget. So I need to do it right when I say that I'm going to do it. So I appreciate everybody being here this evening. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. Plan on, as long as the Lord wills and I've got things going the way that they should be. The fact that I haven't been streaming, guys, has been like, it's not been good for the ministry, of course, because I haven't been streaming, but it's because we've had positive things in other parts of our life that have just been taking up our time. So keep us in prayer that we can mix everything together the way that I should, and get more time to spend with you guys. So if you have any ideas for another watch party, go ahead and send them my way. From what John, Jon, and Debbie have sent, we've got a couple more watch parties to go, but with material for watch parties. But if you guys know of something that we should be sharing with many others, send it my way and we'll get it together. So I hope you had a good time tonight. I hope you have a wonderful day tomorrow, and may the Lord's blessings be on you and your family. Take care, God bless, and good night, everybody.